Hey y'all, and welcome to Bradley the Singing Chef. Today I am going to make one of my favorite things to make, which is actually a red Bolognese sauce. I use this in lots of recipes, whether I am making a lasagna, which is coming soon to a video near you, or whether it's just with any old pasta. This meat sauce is so hearty and tasty, you are going to love it. So let's get going. All right, I've already done quite a bit of my chopping mise en place with an onion that I have chopped, as well as 4 or 5 cloves of garlic that I have minced. I've also gotten started on a single carrot. It was a pretty thick carrot, so I really only need one of them that I peeled, and I've started putting to a pretty small dice. You can kind of see there, okay? And I left this little bit to show you how I did that. So basically I took the large carrot and I cut it into about 3 large pieces, about that long. And then I cut those round pieces in half so that I have a flat edge to put on my cutting board. From there, I'm gonna go lengthwise about 4 times through, giving me 4 carrot sticks, basically, lined up all in a row, still in the shape of the carrot. Turn that to the side, and then you can do your dice the other direction, horizontally through all at once. Just rock your knife through those carrots, and that gets you a really small dice of carrots pretty easily. Just like that. Look at you cooking. Glad you've decided to join me in the kitchen today. All right, so I've got a sauce pot over here that's already heating up. On my eye, I'm gonna add some extra virgin olive oil into the bottom of that hot pan and get these onions in. Thunderous round of applause from the hot oil with those onions and carrots. I'm gonna hold off on the garlic for just a moment. Now, to help those start sweating out and release some of their moisture, I'm gonna add a pretty good pinch of salt to the pot, as well as some ground black pepper. Give those a good stir, get some oil on all the veggies, so they will continue to sweat in the hot pan. Got this pan going, cranked pretty high, about medium-high heat. All right, to this, sometimes people will put an actual celery stalk dice just like the carrot in here. I don't always have I feel like I always have carrots and onions in my house, but I don't always have celery stalks for some reason. So I'm gonna cheat and use a little bit of celery salt, about a teaspoon celery salt into the mix. And my sauce is actually going to have a little kick of heat. So I've got some red chili flakes, some crushed red pepper flakes. And I'm going to use about, I'd say, that's about a tablespoon into the mix. And then, right now, because I'm going to do this twice, I'm going to add oregano. I've got dried oregano here. I'm only going to use initially about a teaspoon of this dried herb. And to release the oils in it, I'm going to take the herb and crush it in between my hands, clean hands that I washed before I started filming, to release some oils and get that into the pan. The reason I'm doing that step now with those spices is I want to bloom those spices in the heat. It might catch your nose and make you want to sneeze from the pepper hitting in there. That's okay. That's just those spices blooming. Great. My gosh, it already smells so good. All right. Butter on my pan's a little dry. I want to add one more little zhuzh of olive oil into the mix. Get that in there. Then I'm finally going to add the 4 to 5 cloves of really finely minced garlic. You could also grate these garlic cloves in there if you wanted to. I just minced them to have these on the ready and ready to go into the pot. So there we go. There's our garlic. Get that stirred around, and if that doesn't make the kitchen smell good, I don't know what will. Onions and garlic, spices. Can't beat it. All right. Let those continue sweating down a bit. They're almost there already. It's pretty quick. While we talk about meat, here's the next step. I'm using a combination of pork and beef in my Bolognese sauce. I have a pound of ground 80-20 beef, which is probably either labeled ground chuck in your grocery store or just ground 80-20. That's 20% fat. You want the fat content in your ground beef. And then I also have a pound of hot Italian ground sausage. You can find this in most of your meat departments in a grocery store. Shouldn't be that difficult to find. Great, my onions have already become translucent in the pot. So before I throw this meat into there, I'm going to sprinkle the beef with salt and pepper just to get some extra love in there and some seasoning. Sausage shouldn't need nearly as much as the beef. Turn that out into the pan and season the other side of that pound of ground beef with salt and with pepper. Cut that up with your wooden spoon so that you can get the meat heading towards being, a ground meat crumble. Then you can put your sausage in. Make sure if there's some packaging like there is on mine, that you take that out. Nobody wants paper in their Bolognese sauce. Same thing. Crumble up the sausage meat, get it mixed in with the beef. You want these to get friendly so that nobody just gets sausage or just gets beef. It's all gonna come together in our pot. And then scoop those carrots and onions and spices around into the meat mixture that you have in there. And we're just gonna let this saute for a while until the meat is mostly cooked through and you don't see any more red bits in your ground beef. So I'm gonna let this go for a few more minutes, clean up my station a little bit, and we'll be right back. All right, y'all, I am back. Okay, my sausage and beef mixture in here has browned all the way through. I don't see any more red bits in the ground beef. Now this next step you may think is a little bit strange, but trust me, it's worth it. It's gonna make your sauce so smooth and luxurious if you do this step. I'm gonna take the mixture that's in here and I'm just gonna create a little hole in the middle of the mixture. You'll see there's a lot of oil that's been released from the sausage, and that's okay for that to be there. You're not gonna see the bottom of the pan, so you just wanna push the meat up against the side. And I'm going to find an excuse to add my favorite ingredient, butter. I got about 2 tablespoons of butter. And that is going in the pot, right in the middle there, to melt down in the pan. And I'm also going to add about a half a cup of milk. I actually have almond milk, and that's fine. But whole milk, I would think, would be the most preferable. But I have almond milk in my house. That's what I use for most anything I cook. So I'm using a half a cup of my almond milk, or you can use whole milk. You could use skim, but I'm not about skimping on milk. Might as well use whole milk. Put that into the pot as the butter melts down in with that milk, and we're just gonna let that kind of simmer and get to know each other a little bit in the pot. A lot of it's gonna evaporate away, but trust me, I don't know what it is, but that helps your sauce just become this luxurious thing. The other thing that I'll say about this recipe is that I am all about stretching this sauce so that you can use it over and over again. It freezes beautifully as well. If you have a freezer container, you can put it in. So like I said, this is just a Bolognese sauce that can be used on any kind of a pasta dish. You could, do spaghetti or fettuccine or any of those things that you want to. You could also throw it over a chicken cutlet, and that would be amazing too. Or you could use it in lasagna as your sauce layer. I mean, it's really, really a great sauce, and I think you're really gonna enjoy it. Okay, so that is starting to incorporate. I'm gonna let some of those milk solids evaporate as I work on my next layer, which is tomatoes. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna stretch this sauce quite a bit. I'm gonna use 3 canned ingredients. I have whole peeled tomatoes, I also have tomato sauce, and I have tomato paste. This paste is just going to add flavor more than anything. And I'm gonna just use about 2 heaping tablespoons tomato paste into the mix. Go ahead and get that in, let that melt down into the jacuzzi while I work on my other tomatoes. Before I add tomato sauce, I'm going to talk about these whole tomatoes. I've got this bowl here because I don't like to chop these up. I like the tomatoes to stay closer to whole and in this sauce. So I like to actually crush them by hand. So I just pour them out into a bowl, and I get a little messy with God's favorite utensil, my hand. I just go in there with my hand and I crush all those tomatoes in this bowl, which enables it to not be so messy, trying to just crush them over the pot and then drop them in. So I'm just trying to not wear the tomatoes. All right, get those crushed up by hand in the juice that was in the can. That's looking good. Great. Give this a stir, see how we're doing. Oh yeah. Starting to get gravy-ish. When you make gravy, you add milk, so that step seems to make sense for, I think Italians call sauce gravy. My whole life, my family, I know we have some kind of Native American heritage in our blood, but we didn't know that we had so much Mediterranean. My parents did that whole ancestry thing, and it came back with all this Mediterranean, so maybe that's why I like Italian food, I don't know. And Italians, I think, call sauce gravy, so the only gravy I know is usually for biscuits. So, all right, so crushed tomatoes that we did by hand are gonna also go into the pot. It's gonna help stretch our sauce even farther, along with this can. It is a 29-ounce can, so pound and 13 ounces. I'm not gonna use all of it. I'm gonna maybe use half for now. We'll see if I want to add more later. And I'm gonna get all those tomatoes and tomato sauce stirred in with the meat. Yes. Oh my gosh. You guys look so good. All right. So I've got a lot of tomatoes that I've just added that don't have any seasoning on them, right? So I'm gonna add another hefty pinch of salt and another hefty pinch of black pepper into the pot. And just because I like it, a little sprinkle of red pepper flake as well. Just a little shake. And then remember I told you I was going to come back to oregano. I'm going to add 1 more teaspoon of oregano to again season all those tomatoes that we just added. Get all those spices stirred in. And then we're getting ready for the waiting game part of this recipe. The last ingredient that is going to go in to this gorgeous sauce, so I clean up a little bit, is some red wine. I have a Cabernet Sauvignon that I've already uncorked. And we are going to glug in about half the bottle. And that, my friends, is the basics of what you've got to put in this pot to make this magical, gorgeous sauce. Then we play our waiting game. This sauce needs to actually simmer for minimum of 3 hours. It may take longer. And then we're gonna come back, we're gonna add some fresh herbs to the mix, and we're gonna taste. I've got all my tasting spoons over here ready to go because, you know, sauces, sometimes I give you these measurements and they're kind of approximate, to be honest. You gotta taste as you go. You never know, the mix of sausage that you got may have way more heat to it than the other mix of sausage. In fact, if you use mild sausage instead of hot, you may indeed want to add a little bit more kick with some crushed red pepper flake. You're gonna test for salt, you're gonna test for pepper and spice level, and you're also gonna taste for your oregano level. That is such a subjective thing. Some people love oregano, some people don't. So get it where you want it. I think you're gonna want some. That's why we started with some into the mix. But you know, if you want to add a pinch afterwards, stir it in, let it simmer a little bit longer, see how that does for you. All right, I'm gonna let this go, like I said, for several hours, at least 3, and I'll be back to taste and we'll see where we are. Hey y'all, we are back. Okay, this beautiful sauce has been simmering away on the eye for about 3 hours and 10 minutes or so. And now there's a little bit of liquid still on the top, just simmering and bubbling on the top. So that lets me know that I'm maybe about 10 to 15 more minutes away from it being a nice thick sauce. So at that point, I want to add a little bit of fresh herbs to the mix. I have some curly parsley here. I'm just going to take a bunch of, maybe about, I don't know, 1/3 of a cup. Just run my knife through all those beautiful leaves. Can even use the stems. There is flavor in there, I assure you. Just chop those down pretty finely. Get them in the mix, and then just rock your knife back and forth through the parsley to get a pretty nice chop on that, just for a little bit of freshness at the very end. You don't want to put this in early, that's why I waited until the very end, otherwise it just, you know, kind of bruises and wilts away. But just to add a little fresh pop, I'm going to put that handful of parsley into my bowl and stir that in to this gorgeous sauce. Like I said, it still needs about maybe another 10 to 15 minutes before we're going to be ready to serve this up. So I'm going to let it continue to simmer, get that nice fresh pop of parsley in, and I will be back to serve some of this beautiful Bolognese sauce up. Be back. Hey y'all, we are back. This sauce is so good to go. It is thick and luscious. I cannot wait to try it. Got a little bit of linguine here that I boiled just to have a little taste of this. I'm gonna use the majority of this sauce in a lasagna recipe that I'll be filming today to give you guys as well. So I'm not gonna use too much of my sauce because it has plans. All right, look at that. Give you a close up. Look at that beautiful Bolognese sauce. I mean, it's so pretty. Cannot wait to try it. See how we did. Tasted the sauce already, if I'm honest with you. before I put that hit of parsley in to make sure that my flavors were okay. I didn't add any more of anything. Salt, pepper, oregano, or chili flake. Everything was actually really good to go with the measurements that I gave you guys. But like I said, make sure that you taste and see what suits you best, all right? All right, let's get in there. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so good. Winter spaghetti dinner. Oh my gosh, it's definitely got some heat to it thanks to that chili flake and the spicy sausage, but my word, that is a flavor bomb. You guys have to make this Bolognese sauce and try it on every pasta you know. It's worth it, trust me. Makes a really big batch here in this full pot. You can freeze some if you don't need it right away. It freezes beautifully, so make sure that you do that to save some of this goodness for later. Thank you so much for joining me here on Bradley the Singing Chef. I hope you will subscribe, like, and share this with your friends. Get them to subscribe. Sure would love to get more subscribers on my list so that we can share the kitchen together and share some food together. Eat well, love always. Bon appetit, y'all.